Late Night Health continues. I'm Mark Allen, along with the insane Daryl Wayne. One of the hardest jobs, and it is a job that anybody can do, is being a caregiver for somebody else. It is often thankless, it is rough, it is difficult, both physically and mentally. Our guest has written a book. She's a journalist by trade. She's written a book, On My Way Back to You, One Couple's Journey Through Catastrophic Illness to Healing and Hope. Her name is Sarah Cart, and she's on our line right now. Sarah, welcome to Late Night Health.
Thank you, Mark. I'm glad to be here, and thank you, Daryl, for keeping us in line.
Hey, good. Hey, listen, I'm curious. Had you ever thought about being a caregiver before? I mean, you know, moms are caregivers. You have 4 kids, 4 sons.
I had done the mom part. I had watched others be caregivers for their spouses at the ends of their lives. My dad for my mother, my sister for her husband. But I hadn't really wrapped my head around or considered that at some point my husband or I would be doing that for one of us for the other, or vice versa. Until suddenly there I was and smack in the middle of it. So
your husband had cardiovascular issues, heart issues.
Yes, he had an autoimmune disease that ended up putting him in congestive heart failure. And although a pacemaker was helpful, about 8 months after the pacemaker, his kidneys failed. So he needed a heart transplant. And
wow.
Yeah. Well, things got crazy pretty quickly, and he ended up in the hospital 2 weeks after the COVID pandemic shut the world down. So it was.
And you're a journalist by trade. What did you cover? I mean, you could have covered, you know, crime and gone down to the courts all the time or the jails.
Yeah, I was a hometown journalist. It was the local, well, there were a couple of local papers, but the one I ended up at was the Youngstown Vindicator, the daily paper in Youngstown, Ohio. And the stuff that I wrote was all soft society section stuff, back when we had a society section in newspapers. And I actually ended up being the woman who wrote the Good Cooks column. People would write in and nominate their great Aunt Martha because she made a wonderful blueberry cobbler, and I would go interview her, talk with her for 20 minutes, get 5 recipes from her, and those ran in every Wednesday paper for 10 years.
If you have a blueberry recipe, please send it to me.
I will forward it to you.
Yeah,
I have a lot of recipes.
Yes. So all of a sudden, well, maybe it wasn't all of a sudden. As your husband's heart got worse, he needed the pacemaker. He had kidney failure. He couldn't work, I would assume, at that point.
Yeah, he ended up having to retire on disability. And the beginnings of being a caregiver in our instance were pretty slow, pretty small steps. Kind of realized on a year into everything that I was the one making the decisions about driving to the hospital and what time we were leaving and where we were going to park and how we were going to get to the doctor's office. And then I become the one who's writing some of the, writing the checks and paying the bills. And it was little steps at once and one at a time. And then all of a sudden I realized it was me doing everything until he ended up in the hospital. And then I was doing everything on the home front, but unable to do anything for him because it was the pandemic. So I couldn't visit him.
Wow.
So,
how long was he in the hospital?
he was in the hospital for 10 weeks. He was not on the transplant list when he went in, but they got him on within a week. It was a roller coaster. On the list, off the list, back on the list, and then a heart got allocated. But a week after the transplant, there were several things going on, but one of the things that they then mentioned was, has anyone said anything about this broken left hip, which had actually happened on my watch.
Say that word again.
A broken left hip. He had fallen a few days before he ended up in the hospital. But because he was so sick with so many other things going on, he just told me he bruised his leg. That's all it was. And he ended up in the hospital, and they put him in bed in an ICU, and they didn't realize until 3.5 weeks later, the radiologist, they do a portable chest x-ray almost every day at that point, or I think, I don't know. And they set it up a little farther south than usual, and there was a broken hip. So when I got him back 10 weeks after he'd left with his new heart, he came home unable to walk, in a wheelchair, and needing to have his hip replaced sometime in the future, which they ended up doing because of COVID. The hip surgeon, well, I got Ben strong enough for the surgery, then the hip surgeon got COVID, and that put it off. So it was 2 months after he got home before he was able to go back for the hip
Good
replacement.
news. How's your husband today?
The great news is he's doing so wonderfully that he annoys me on a regular basis, and it is
That's
wonderful.
our job as husbands.
That's exactly, he's doing a great job. And one of the things, he had to learn how to walk again after the new hip, and how to do stairs. And so when we're in a snippy mood with each other, if one of us just stops and takes a breath and walks over to a nearby step and goes, "Look at me doing reciprocal steps," it kind of just puts everything back in perspective of, really, is this question of my not having used a coaster something we need to fight about, or isn't the bigger picture that, look at this, I can walk again. We have a
I
life
need you to
again.
talk to my wife. I get yelled at about not using coasters all the
I
time.
don't want your wife to have to go through what Ben and I went through. I
What?
wouldn't wish it on anybody.
I'll bet. What about your, how old are your kids? What's the range?
They're the oldest one is 40, and the other three are in their 30s. Four
You look,
boys.
you only look 40. Are you sure?
Haha, bless you.
Could they help? Could they be there to help?
No, it was we're snowbirds, so we spend the winters down in the Keys, and that's where we ended up when he got so sick, when the pandemic was declared. And the boys, one was in Nashville, two were in Massachusetts, and one was in suburban New York. So no, nobody could get down to visit us. But we learned how to use Zoom. My first Zoom session was the night Ben went in the hospital, and it just amazes me to think there was ever a before Zoom time in my life.
Do you know how it works? It's magic.
Yes, I agree. It's magic,
Yeah, we're on Zoom right now.
right? And
It
and when
is
it
all magic.
yeah, when it doesn't work, it helps if you have a teenager around to make it work for you.
That is true.
Yeah.
And we don't have that either. So no teens.
I complained to my husband that when our youngest child went off to college, our last tech support had left, and Ben would say, "I am your tech support." My point exactly.
Exactly. Got it. I am the tech support as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works, and sometimes you have to talk to somebody,
Yes. Sometimes
and
it
it's
becomes a
very
vocabulary
difficult.
expanding
Very difficult.
exercise. Yeah.
Um, we're coming up to the end of our first segment together. What would you say was the biggest thing you learned about being a caregiver?
Um, you can get through this. I was going to say you're stronger than you think, but that implies sometimes the word stronger makes you think, oh my goodness, I might end up being weak. And that's not it. You can get through it. You just need to take it a step at a time, break it down into little pieces. And if the pieces are still unmanageable, figure out how to break them down to something smaller and finally manageable. Um, you have to be forgiving of yourself. You're not going to get it right. Um, you might like to think, hey, I get everything right. You're not. There's a
It's
learning
like
curve.
having kids then. They don't
Yes,
come with an instruction book.
it's
We're
like
going to
having
take
kids.
some we're
Yeah.
going to take some time out and come back to our guest Sarah Cart in just a couple of moments. The name of the book, by the way, On My Way Back to You: One Couple's Journey Through Catastrophic Illness to Healing and Hope. I'm Mark Allen, along with the insane Daryl Wayne. Please join us at latenighthealth.com. We'll have a link to the book, and we'll have uh, a pretty picture with of Sarah up there as well. So that's latenighthealth.com. I'm Mark Allen, as I said, along with the insane Daryl Wayne. We're going to take some time out. We'll be back in just a couple moments as Late Night Health continues. Late Night Health is proud of our partnership with the EBC, the Evolutionary Business Council. Check them out at ebcouncil.com.
You're listening to Late Night Health with Mark Allen. The show continues in a moment.
Recently, I met Jacqueline from Bright here in Los Angeles. She gave me a hearing exam and then showed me how to hear again with the new Signia Pure Series hearing aids, and she can give you your life back too. I hear birds chirping, birds cooing, and even my wife. They easily connect to my smartphone. The Signia hearing aids are amazing, and with the charge and go, I don't have to fiddle with batteries and hear all day long. Not hearing is frustrating for you and your family. I know you don't have a problem, but trust me, call Bright Here now for a free hearing exam, a $125 value, yours free, just for making an appointment now. There are offices throughout the Los Angeles area. Call Bright Here now at 323-424-7100. That's 323-424-7100 for a free hearing exam. There's no obligation. Call now, 323-424-7100, or visit them on the web at brighthere.com.
If you're listening to Late Night Health right now, you're part of the growing target of baby boomers we're serving. Hi, I'm Daryl Wayne, producer of Late Night Health, inviting you to join the Late Night Health family. If you have any business targeting the growing boomer market, Late Night Health is the ideal advertising vehicle for you. From vitamins to insurance, alternative health to Western-style medicine, Late Night Health caters to the growing population of those over 40 years old. This vibrant demographic has expendable income to fight aging, purchase travel, take care of aging parents, or just have fun. Find out about the advertising opportunities with Late Night Health. Call us at 805-391-0308. That's 805-391-0308, or email us at info@latenighthealth.com. That's info@latenighthealth.com. Join Late Night Health as we empower people to take charge of their own health care. Call now at 805-391-0308. That's 805-391-0308.
Sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Words are a critical aspect of success. How you get your point across is a crucial part of what makes anything sell. So do it right and hire a writer. Whether it's articles, blog posts, technical writings, website content, product descriptions, or ghostwriting anything from a novel to a nonfiction book about your navel, contact Servet Hassan. If you want it to sell, write it right. Email Servet at servet@servethassan.com.
It's time to tackle a tough topic, one that affects us all. We're talking about sexism in the workplace. The award-winning Identifying the Elephant in the Room series is back and ready to tackle some complicated communications issues again. This spring, we're focusing on critical communication strategies in the face of sexism. Join us as we hear from professionals in the natural products industry who have valuable career lessons to share and real-world experience to discuss from all sides of the elephant. It's time to have an honest and open conversation about the impact of sexism in the workplace and how we can make it better for everyone. Identifying the Elephant in the Room series starts March 16th. Register today at inicibox.vfairs.com. That's INICIBOX.VFAIRS.com, and join the conversation to be part of the solution. Late Night Health continues. I'm Mark Allen, along with the insane Daryl Wayne. Our guest has written a very interesting book. Her name is Sarah Cart, On My Way Back to You, One Couple's Journey Through Catastrophic Illness to Healing and Hope. Was there any time during your husband's, Ben's recovery or before when you wanted to go, ah? I hope I didn't blow anything up when I did that.
Yes, but not at, well, only once at him. And the one time at him was as I was, he came home from the hospital and rehab. He'd been gone for 10 weeks. He had had the undivided attention of doctors and nurses and technology experts and janitorial staff and cafeteria folks for all that time. And he comes home still in the midst of COVID. He's now got me. And that was okay. I was so anxious and happy and relieved to have him home, that the caregiving curve that came with that was really steep, but I was ready. I mean, as ready as one can be. I'd been tutored by all the doctors and nutritionists, and I was raring to go. But a week into that, he's in a wheelchair because of his broken hip, and he also had been thinking about all the things he wanted to do when he got home. So he had very long lists. So I walk into his office, and he's hand me that file, turn the fan down, that light's too bright, get me some water. I mean, I'm an extension of his body at this point, and I just 10 minutes into this, I lost it. And I just said, if you had looked at a calendar, you would have known that my birthday was a week ago. And he just, it wasn't that I was expecting a present, but just a, hey, I'm sorry I missed your birthday, or something. But so that was the one time I really lost it with him. The other time I really truly lost it was he came home from rehab, and the doctors and technicians and therapists had all assured us that home healthcare was going to be there for us. I'm an infuser. I don't do blood. I don't do bed sores or all that. I mean, he came home with 5 wounds that still needed to be taken care of. And so I was counting on this. I had also been hospitalized right before the pandemic with a bad back. So it was not like I could pick him up and help him get in and out of the shower or anything like that. I mean, add water and glass and soap to my bad back and his inability to walk. It was just, so the home healthcare thing was not working for a lot of reasons. COVID, we lived far from civilization. So,
and what about, excuse me for interrupting, yeah, but what about that really terrible word, insurance?
Well, insurance is great if you've got the personnel who can show up, but the home health agencies didn't have, I mean, they were so stressed by COVID as well. And so I'd get this phone call from the home health aide who was supposed to show up at 10 in the morning saying, I'll get there by 5 this afternoon. And then he'd text me at 5:30 and say, sorry, not going to get there today. And this was the first week Ben was home. It happened like 3 days in a row. And then I get in touch with the agency, and then the agency sends a substitute, and the substitute says, well, hey, tomorrow when you're on your way to the hospital, you can stop on US 1 and meet us. And I know I have a friend with an empty office. We can do it there instead of my driving all the way down to the key. I mean, it was just so against any protocol or expectation. We needed to switch agencies, was the short version of that story. And we ended up having to switch agencies twice. And there were mornings where I screamed myself hoarse. Ben was dependent on opioids at this point because of the pain of his hip as we were waiting for his surgery. And so I didn't want to wake him up, but I'd hang up the phone after another fruitless phone call, and I'd put my face in a pillow and just scream. And I ended up with the worst sore throat I've had in years, just from the frustration.
We hear a lot about families being financially wiped out because of surgeries like this. I just had a test a couple of weeks ago. I'm fine, everybody, but and the test, I got my insurance paper back. I think it was $20,000. The insurance companies paid like 13 or 14, and I owed 0. The healthcare system is broken. We've talked about this ad infinitum, but did it affect you and your husband in any way where insurance may not have covered something?
We had, well, first of all, we're lucky. He had very good insurance. That said, let's go back to when he got his pacemaker. When we got the bill for his pacemaker, it's like, are you kidding me? $400,000 for something the size of an Oreo? It blew my mind. And the other, even now, there's a certain kind of, he got his heart transplant at the Cleveland Clinic in Weston, Florida, so outside of Fort Lauderdale. And one of the things that the clinic does is every 6 months, there's a certain kind of still somewhat experimental test that they have done. Someone comes to our house and draws blood, and they run this test. And they can tell they can tell things doing that they used to do and they still do now, with a biopsies going in through his carotid down into the new heart and snipping a little bit. But this is, in theory, less expensive. Insurance doesn't cover it. And we get these bills for, $7,000 or $8,000 for a couple of vials of blood. And it just blows our mind. And like you said, we end up not having to pay it. Somehow the hospital absorbs that cost because it's them wanting it to become a protocol way of handling this moving forward. But it's flabbergasting what the things cost. And I have absolutely no idea what the final bill was for his hospitalization. I do know
you
that
probably don't want to know.
I know I don't want to know. I do know that when we talked, one of the things he figured out was that he could go on Social Security earlier than expected once he came home from the hospital. And we had to go through what was supposed to have been a 45-minute interview, and it turned into 2.5 hours because I had all of our medical notes, and Ben had, all he could tell them was, I called the hospital to ask about my charts because you asked me to, and my abstract is 8,000 pages.
Oh my,
and that
abstract.
Was the abstract, and that was 4 years ago. I have no idea in the post-surgery time how much longer that's gotten, because they continue. I mean, they will own him for the rest of his life. We go back to the Cleveland Clinic.
So Ben is great now, and
yes.
I hope you don't mind. You had a little fall yourself, and he had to take care of you for a day or two, right?
Yes. I fell and smacked my head against a wall, and he had to take me to the ER, and he had to sit by my side for 4 hours. Well, I guess he wasn't by my side when they took me for the CAT scan. I was very lucky. I didn't break anything, but I was very dizzy. So when he brought me home, he had to figure out how to get me into bed and make sure that if I was going to be ill, I had what I needed. And the next morning he gave me breakfast in bed, which was a bland diet. But
I'm just curious, did he know where the kitchen was before?
I did. That night he made dinner, and I did have to talk him through every step of a really easy dinner. Like where the measuring cups are, how to turn the oven on. Yeah, all of that. Otherwise it would have been peanut butter.
To me, caregivers are heroes. So I commend you. I wish I had a medal I could give you. I think, it's something that is very difficult to do for somebody, but the end result in your case has been very successful, which is great. And of course, being able to cuddle again is also very good, right?
Yeah. And I'm so glad to be able to hold his hand and give him a kiss on the forehead or a smack on the butt whenever he needs it.
Or punch him in the shoulder when he does something wrong.
Yeah.
Give him an elbow, right? Yeah. Listen, Sarah, thank you very much. The name of the book, On My Way Back to You, One Couple's Journey Through Catastrophic Illness to Healing and Hope, from Forefront Books. And I'm assuming it's on Amazon?
It is on Amazon, and the audio version will be on Amazon soon.
Got it. Hey, listen, thank you very much for your time. Daryl, thank you for everything you do.
My pleasure.
I appreciate it. And thank you for listening at home. I'm Mark Allen, wishing you a great week, wishing you a good week. Most importantly, have a healthy week. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.